At 91, most people slow down, but not Mary. Every morning, just after sunrise, she ties on her sun hat, slips into her garden shoes, and steps outside with a quiet smile. Her backyard in suburban Ohio hums with life, tomatoes blushing on the vine, roses leaning into the light, butterflies fluttering like soft applause. And there's Mary, moving gracefully between rows of greens, full of energy, steadier on her feet than people half her age. No expensive vitamins, no secret elixirs, just soil, sunshine, and the daily rhythm of tending to something alive. You might wonder, how can a woman her age still glow with this much strength and joy? Well, science has something to say about that. And so does Mary. In today's video from Elderly Wisdom Secrets, we're going to share the powerful, science-backed reason why gardening isn't just a hobby, it's a lifeline. You'll hear real stories, learn surprising health benefits, and discover why picking up a watering can might be the most important thing you do after 60. Because sometimes, the key to a longer, happier life is already blooming right in your backyard. Ready to find out how? Let's begin. Mary never calls herself a health expert. She doesn't talk about fitness routines or anti-aging hacks. But what she does do, every single morning, is walk out into her garden. She's been doing it for over 30 years. At first, it was just a way to grow her own food. We didn't have much back then, she says, so I planted lettuce, carrots, and some herbs. But as the years passed, that garden became something much bigger. It became her routine, her refuge, her rhythm of life. And now, at 91, Mary still walks unassisted, sleeps soundly, and has a memory as sharp as her garden shears. Science confirms what Mary lives every day. A 2022 study from Harvard University found that older adults who garden for just 30 minutes a day experience a 25% lower risk of depression, better heart function, and stronger muscle coordination. Why? Because gardening is more than bending and watering. It stimulates the brain, improves balance, lowers stress hormones, and gets blood moving through parts of the body that often go stagnant with age. When Mary crouches to pull weeds or stretches to prune her rose bushes, she's doing what researchers now call natural movement therapy. No machines, no pressure, just her body working in sync with nature. And perhaps the most powerful part? Mary says she never feels alone out there. The garden talks back. She smiles. It reminds me I'm alive. For her, every seed planted is a promise, not just of vegetables or flowers, but of continued purpose, of hope. Now imagine this. What if just 10 minutes a day in your backyard, or even on your balcony, could do the same for you? Let's look at how you can start. Even if you've never held a shovel in your life, you don't need a big yard. You don't need fancy tools. You don't even need a green thumb. You just need to begin. For those new to gardening, especially after 60, the secret isn't in doing more. It's in doing a little. Consistently. With love. Start with one pot. Just one. It could be a basil plant on your kitchen windowsill, a small pot of mint on your porch, or a single tomato vine in a bucket. Something you can see, care for, and watch grow. If bending is difficult, try raised garden beds or vertical planters that bring the soil closer to you. Many seniors find that using a garden stool or bench makes it easier to move without strain. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection. Spend 10 minutes in the morning or evening, touching the soil, watering a plant, pulling a weed. Let it become a moment of mindfulness, a tiny ritual that grounds you. Listen to the birds, feel the sun on your back, smell the earth. Don't worry about doing it right. Nature doesn't rush, and neither should you. And if you feel unsure, ask for help. Invite a grandchild to plant a seed with you. Join a local community garden or senior group. Gardening, like joy, grows bigger when shared. Because starting a garden after 60 isn't just about vegetables or flowers. It's about creating a space that reminds you, every single day, that life is still growing. And so are you. Ready to explore how gardening can help you not just live longer, but better? In the next section, we'll show you how planting isn't just good for your body, it's deeply healing for your mind and heart. Shall we keep going? Life after 60 can bring beauty, but it can also bring loss. Some days feel quieter than others. The house isn't as full. The phone doesn't ring as often. And there are moments when the stillness feels too loud. But out in the garden, something shifts. When your hands are in the soil, the world slows down, worries fade, your breath deepens without effort. And somewhere between watering the basil and pulling a weed, you realize you're not just tending to the earth, you're tending to yourself. This is what Ellen, 67, discovered after losing her husband of 40 years. Grief was heavy. The silence in the mornings felt endless. But then one day, she stepped outside and planted lavender. Just one plant. Weeks passed, and so did the tears. And one quiet morning, she caught herself smiling. The lavender had bloomed, according to a 2023 study from the CDC. Gardening can reduce stress levels by up to 20% in older adults. The simple act of being near plants, touching natural textures, and witnessing growth helps regulate the nervous system, calming anxiety and lifting the mood. It's not magic, it's biology, and it's deeply human. For Ellen, her garden became a daily conversation with the world, a place where she could feel sadness and still find beauty, where she could be alone and still feel connected. And maybe that's the true secret, in helping something grow. You begin to grow again too. So if your heart has been feeling heavy, or your day's a little flat, try stepping outside, even if just for a few minutes. Put your hands in the soil. Plant something small. Let it remind you that healing doesn't have to be loud or fast. It just has to begin. Up next, let's explore how gardening isn't just healing for the mind. It's also a surprisingly powerful way to strengthen your body after 60. No gym required. Let's keep going. Not all strength comes from lifting weights. Sometimes, it comes from lifting a watering can, from bending to pull a weed, from walking out the back door every day with a purpose. That's what Robert, 80, learned, not from a physical therapist, but from a wheelbarrow full of sunflowers. After knee surgery in his late 70s, Robert feared he'd never move the same again. He felt stiff, unsteady, and unsure. The gym overwhelmed him, and long walks exhausted him. But when his daughter suggested he try gardening again, something clicked. He started small, just a few sunflowers. Then a raised bed of herbs. Then tomatoes. And slowly, his body responded. Each push of the wheelbarrow helped rebuild his balance. Each squat to plant strengthened his legs. Each morning in the garden gave him rhythm, movement, and meaning. According to the American Medical Association, just 30 minutes of gardening a day can improve muscle strength, flexibility, and coordination in older adults, comparable to a light exercise routine. And unlike repetitive workouts, gardening keeps both the mind and body engaged. It's dynamic, full of gentle challenges, and rooted in purpose. Robert says, "The more I worked the garden, the less I thought about pain. I wasn't exercising, I was just living again." And that's the beauty of it. In the garden, you're not chasing fitness. You're moving with intention. You're reconnecting with your body, not pushing it. So if climbing stairs feels harder than it used to, or if your joints need gentle encouragement, consider starting with a few minutes of garden time a day. You may find that your body wakes up again, not with intensity, but with quiet strength. And while your body grows stronger, something else grows too, your plate. Because the final gift of the garden is this: you don't just move better, you eat better too. Shall we dig into that next? Let's continue. For Clara, 76, every salad she makes is a quiet celebration. Not because it's trendy or low calorie, but because the lettuce, tomatoes, and herbs in her bowl came from her own hands. Just a few years ago, she relied on pre-packaged greens and store-bought produce. But after a health scare, Clara decided to try something different. She planted a garden. It started with basil in a windowsill pot, then kale in a raised bed, then juicy red tomatoes, ripening under the Tennessee sun. Now, every meal she prepares feels like an act of self-respect. I know exactly where it came from, Clara says. I grew it, I nurtured it, I'm feeding myself from the earth, not from a box. Science backs her up. A 2021 study from Cornell University found that older adults who consume homegrown produce have higher nutrient intake, lower risk of chronic illness, and greater feelings of control over their health. When you grow your own food, even just 1 or 2 ingredients, you reduce your exposure to chemicals, eat more seasonally, and reconnect with what real nourishment feels like. But more than that, gardening gives you something few things can after 60, independence. It reminds you that you are still capable of creating, of caring, of sustaining yourself with something simple and beautiful. And maybe that's the greatest harvest of all, not just the food itself, but the confidence it brings. So whether it's a single tomato plant or a full garden bed, whether you grow herbs in a pot or strawberries along your fence, you are planting more than food. You're planting strength, clarity, connection, joy. And now, as we step back and take in the full garden, the energy of Mary, the friendships of John, the healing of Ellen, the strength of Robert, the nourishment of Clara, we see it clearly. A garden is not just a place where things grow. It's a place where you grow. Let's wrap this up together, with one final thought to carry with you. What began as Mary's morning ritual has now become something greater, a reminder that at any age, we still have the power to grow. Through each story, whether it was Robert regaining strength, Ellen finding peace, or Clara feeding herself with pride, we've seen that the garden doesn't just change the earth beneath our feet. It changes us, and it doesn't take much. You don't need acres of land. You don't need perfect tools. All you need is the willingness to begin, with one pot, one plant, one gentle moment a day. Because in caring for something living, we quietly begin to care for ourselves. Our bodies grow stronger, our minds grow calmer, our hearts grow fuller. So if you've been wondering what your next chapter could look like, step outside. Let the sun warm your shoulders. Let your hands feel the soil, and plant the beginning of something beautiful. Here at Elderly Wisdom Secrets, we believe that every season of life holds new opportunities to bloom, and we're honored to walk this path with you. If this video touched your heart, gave you an idea, or simply made you smile, click like to support the message. Subscribe for more inspiring stories and health wisdom every week, and share it with someone who might need a gentle nudge to start their own garden, inside or out. Your next chapter doesn't have to begin with a big change. It can begin with one small seed. And we'll be right here to cheer it on. See you in the next video. Until then, keep growing.